I am devastated, inconsolable. Okay, so now this time I'll keep the chat window up here. I talked for over 45 minutes. I cannot repeat all of that. You know how exhausting it is to think at this level and to try to explain it? Because that means a translation between levels as well. And honestly, it's not even that the ideas are that smart. Everything that I'm saying is actually extremely simple and obvious, but is just not what we were programmed, how we were programmed to see it. And it's really more of the fact that I'm so tired after having spoken for an hour and a half about this is more of a testament to the sort of simplicity or what the brain was made for the energy efficiency of the brain, the habit. Can someone just? I hope this chat is telling me the YouTube chat, and it really is. It really isn't. I got extremely lucky, and just all the things that you missed. Excuse me while I spit, since this doesn't seem to be going anyway. Um, Unbelievable. And so the dropped frames are like 20%. So I mean, it's probably terrible quality as well. This is the most important presentation of our lives, of mine, of yours, of your children's. And really, it's not that I'm all that smart. It's honestly, it's just that because I have ADHD, it never quite sat right with me, the idea of the single self. And so, and then because I have ADHD, I was interested in psychology and neuroscience. And because my dad is an atheist, but like the bad kind, the one that rejects God, that believes in the absence of God. So those factors are why I thought a lot about beliefs and reason and all that, and the mind, and okay, and maybe this isn't even the YouTube chat. So maybe there are people like, okay, get to it. I saw there was like 21 views on the other thing. I don't know what that means. Was my mom refreshing, or did she have enough? Now the wind is worse. This isn't going well, and I want to thank, if there were actually like more than 3 people watching me and like thinking about this stuff with me, that's pretty awesome. Actually, 2 people was fine. My girlfriend and my mother. That's very good. Where's my dog though? I'm sorry, guys. Oh, okay. I'm gonna try to send a message. I'm just trying to get back into it. I wasn't planning to start and dick around like this and waste your time like this, but coffee and whiskey. Oh, hi. Okay, great. And so you can see me now? Of course, I don't know what the lag is. And this. Okay, these are not real obstacles. Okay, let's just get into it. Okay, so where's the mic here? Wind is like, I don't know. Okay, so and here's the thing about this broadcast is that obviously I said great stuff, talked about important stuff in the other one when after it had cut out. So I'm going to post that. But of course, I'm not going to ask you to watch both of them. I guess I'm not asking you to watch anything. But like, what do I do though? Do I continue for the record, for the people, oh, he could have done that farther away. For the people who are, because I do need you to watch it though, because there was the funny thing with Neo. Oh boy. So I can try to not repeat myself. And then just, if you want to understand the world, then yeah, you're just going to have to go back and watch it, even though it isn't live. But also, obviously, I can't just pick up where I left off. So, start over, Mother says. Start over? Oh, you know what? That's not a bad idea, actually. Should I start over? Oh my gosh. I don't think I could do that. Okay. But maybe I can do it more quickly. I've been able to get through some of the ideas, do it a bit more concisely. Just the moments we had together where, like, I feel like I said something and we just paused together and I was like, that's huge. Do you understand that? And actually we didn't have those moments together. And that hurts me. That chokes one of my voices. Okay. All right, let's start over then. Let's start over. And if you were one of my viewers, then you can just, you can just have this going in the background and check back after. Oh, fuck it. Well, there's no way I'm actually going to be able to fully do everything, but okay. So I turn off this. That's not what I wanted. Thanks for hanging out with me on my birthday. So I need to click slideshow. Great. Then I have to go back to here. And I have to be like, properties. Oh, right. So it's no. Oh, gosh. Thanks for being with me, guys. Nope, not that one. How about that one? Not that one. I should do these in order. Fuck, I'm gonna be trying the same ones. Not that one. Which Safari window is it? So many Safari items. Yeah, just leave me alone. I'm not gonna. I could just stop the live stream. I could. And then just start when I'm ready. That's not a bad idea. But honestly, I don't think I'm that far from finding it. Okay. Okay. All right. So then what we do is you go back to this screen over here, and we're like, boom, 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 beep, 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 beep. All right, we can't literally start over, can we? Then it would just be one video for posterity. But the real ones know about the original video. I honestly, I just can't act. I have voices that are saying different things, and while I'm working on that, let me give you a new word to use instead of thinking. Threshing. Threshing. We say that we think, and I've never really understood that because I don't think I think. I don't think that whatever your concept of thinking is, I don't think that I do it. I don't think like I'm there like doing calculations. At least I'm not conscious of them. So I use the word threshing, and that's from the word threshold, because basically what's happening is like if you have to make a purchase decision, for instance, let me think it over. You go home, you think about other stuff. You do other things. You see other images in your mind that may have nothing to do with the purchase decision, or they may. In any case, unconscious or not, or conscious, there is activity in your mind, voices playing with this purchase decision. There is a very cheap voice in your mind that is pretty much always saying no to all purchase decisions. There's another one that's like, oh, we can have like a new thing. That's cool. There's another one that's like, oh, we need it for this purpose. There's another one that was like, the salesman was really charming. There's another one like, I don't know, all my friends have this, whether you like it or not. All these voices are interacting. And then basically what happens is they play with each other until some kind of a threshold is reached of confidence in sort of one of the voices or one of the stances. There may be multiple voices pushing towards the same thing, and eventually you feel more voice activity, or one of the voices like triggers the confidence feeling. It's able to slip in there and go, it hits the confidence button in your brain, and so then your confidence voice is like, okay, cool. And so you've reached some threshold. It's not like necessarily a reasonable threshold because I can't go through it all. Okay, what are we gonna do? Hey, thanks for hanging out with me on my birthday. Oh look, yeah, my mom said we can hang with you. That's nice, thank you. So, fudge. Okay, still threshing, but I guess I'm starting to reach a confidence threshold, a commitment threshold, in the sort of idea of starting over. Okay, no. Obviously, we cannot do that. It's an hour and a half. Okay, so, okay, I'm done threshing. We are not going to start over. We're just going to keep talking. All right, so let's see if you're just starting with us, though. Basically, I have a theory called voice theory, which I want you to teach you in order for you to understand yourself and other people. I will say something now that I have said in the past, which is that what's crazy about humans, oh, and this is something I didn't say in the other video. What is crazy about humans is our lack of interest in psychology. Yes, okay, everybody's interested in psychology. Everybody's like, oh, like, I think psychology is so cool or whatever. But I want you to think about like any sci-fi movie that you've seen with AI. Anytime there is a computer that becomes intelligent, what's the first thing it does? It looks at its code. If you have a computer and there is a problem with it, it does something unexpected. You look at its code. If you want to understand computer behavior, you look at its code. You can use a computer without looking at its code, but you still have to know that everything that is happening on this computer is its code. And yet, we act like the brain doesn't matter. The brain is it's the start. Everything, not just what you see, not just your logical thoughts, everything you experience, want, feel, it's activity in the brain, a brain that has been sort of constructed by evolution, by the pressures of natural selection for our ancestors, by your experiences since your birth. Understanding how that happens, what those natural selective forces were, and therefore what instincts you might already have, how can there be something more fundamental, more primordial? Can I use that word there? So it's crazy to me. I mean, the only thing we need to, the world needs to understand right now is psychology. And then we need to understand the world, which is physics. First, we need to understand our understanding of the world, how we understand the world. The worst part, and just so that you're sympathetic, the worst part is that I was saying after going for about an hour and 20 minutes, so over 30 minutes past when the stream had stopped, I was saying that I was running out of steam. So, so the public typically uses the word bias as a thing a prejudice that we have, a preference for a thing. Um, a cognitive bias is instead a thing a systematic error in our thinking is typically how it's defined. Um, Another typical definition that is not good is a deviation from reasoning or a distortion of reasoning or something that influences our reasoning. Uh, and so basically, then we talked about how I also thought that we could say it influences, it distorts. I thought that we had this ego that was this self, this conscious agent, this rational human, take into consideration our instincts. Um, and then I started to realize about 8 years. So this whole idea was from 9 years ago. About 8 years ago, started realizing, be able to say, I could be completely wrong about this. And for the record, I could be completely wrong about this. I am almost certainly wrong about most of the things that I'm saying, or I'm phrasing them in a way that I believe, but in a way that is incorrect. But hopefully, the core of what I'm saying has some truth value to it. But it's really hard to be humble like that and to revise the self if we think of the self as this unit that is reasonable, this knowing thing. And we just need to be careful that biases don't influence us, but we ourselves are good. And so when we make a decision, it is from us. We would have known it if we were manipulated into it by some bias. So, when I think about something for a few seconds, that's me, and me is reasonable, and therefore the things that I think, my conclusions and my behaviors are reasonable. And so morally, that's a huge thing because, as I talked about in the previous video, we are all racist, but we don't like to admit it because we think of ourselves as one single thing, and so then obviously that one single thing is not racist, but in fact we are lots of things. There is a voice that knows that racism is bad. There's no real clear definition of racism in your brain. Probably, but there's a voice that says, "Oh, that word bad," and but there's also a voice that is always going to have a preference for the in group as opposed to the out group, and being aware of that is extremely important to being able to compensate for that. So if you have to make a decision between two people, by knowing that you are going to have a preference for if one is the member of the in group and for him, as opposed to the other if it is a member of the if it. See, I said him and then I said it. If he is a member of the out group, by knowing that, you can just say, okay, but literally let me write down the reasons that I might prefer this person. Because I know that my actual preference may just be because this person's the in group. But since I have to make a decision, let me sort of try as hard as I can to write down the reasons. Not just let me try to be reasonable, because you don't know what voice is speaking or what voice is voting. And then, of course, what happens is if we think that we are by default reasonable and just need to avoid the influence of other biases, when other people say these things that we think are crazy and wrong, well, we go, well, you that it doesn't even compute for us. Sometimes we say that they're crazy. Sometimes we say that they're just really dumb. Sometimes we say that they're evil. But really, we all have basically the same voices. And if you disagree with someone, it's probably just because different voices were triggered for them, but neither of you is really right. During the French Revolution, there was this philosophy of sentimentalism, and people who were revolutionaries but disagreed with the current, the sort of with the majority of the with the other revolutionaries. Well, they were assumed to be traitors because, well, we all have the truth in our hearts, so it's written on our hearts. So if you're saying this other idea, then you must be sent by the government. So we have this idea that truth is sort of written in us, and that we are this by default reasonable, which of course should make us very confused as to why we disagree with so many people about so many things, but it doesn't. We're too arrogant, so we're just like, oh, yeah, no, I'm being reasonable, they aren't. Then I had a long thing at several different points talking about how that relates to ADHD and depression. Basically, just that it's very easy to sort of not understand ADHD if you think of if you sort of have this sense that there's this ego, this controlling rational soul, because then, okay, yeah, maybe the brain or the unconscious or whatever might be bad, but then you can just override that. You know you have ADHD, so then you can make the decision to get up and get out of bed, or you know you have depression, etc. And it's just really stupid and wrong, and I talked about it in the last video. So we're missing the lead up, which may be absolutely essential, but basically I realized, yeah, there is no ego. We are, and this is not even fun for you because it isn't fun for you because it isn't fun for me. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We are going to stop now. We are going to stop now. Oh, I've been wanting to do this for years. We are going to stop now, though, because I need to feel it. Okay, let me try again. So we've got this. So the ego. No, can't do it. Can't do it. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Okay. So we've got this. So basically, all you are. No, can't do it. I talked about evolution. The ego does not exist. Does not mean it will produce the appropriate thoughts or behaviors. I don't think that's a typo there. Okay, so so the bid is there's no point explaining that and going through that again because the bid is everything. It is the mind. So let's just start off with evolution. Can't do it. Cannot do it. Cannot do it. I am not an integrate thing. I want to do it. I have the information in my mind. I am not able to execute right now. I got too involved in it. I was building, I was losing some steam, but at least I was explaining things well. Okay, so I'll just pick up where I left off, and then tonight I'll post the first part. So I talked about evolution, and believe me, you were eating it up. you were like, oh wow, yeah, obviously we're just lines of code, and obviously we're just these simple imitations of reason, and these incoherent interacting parts, not a coherent whole. God, we were together. This video is so hard to make, and I'm sorry that I can't just move on. So what all that means, what that all means, that we are these incoherent. Um, I am pushing so hard. Yes, so let's just keep going. So we have bad voices. We have these instincts. I have a preference for the in-group as opposed to the out-group. I am more wary of a member of the out-group, and I am more willing to punish a member of the out-group and more willing to forgive a member. That is the part of my coding that made it possible that I exist. That was the coding that got selected by nature. That was the coding of my ancestors who survived and made it possible for me to be a descendant. That they were like, oh, people in my group are good, people outside. I do have a preference for more attractive people as it is defined for my species through my genes and then also by the media, because there are some things that genetically just aren't very attractive, but the media has sort of distorted into being attractive by accident, by exaggerating something that we genetically like. And then, of course, we learn that. And so, anyway. And I am the ensemble of all of those things. And basically, I can never be reasonable. I can never have a brain that takes in, first of all the information available to me. That's already impossible. Takes in all the information available to me and then compares all the information to each other according to other rules and information that I have, in order to then come to the conclusion that is best justified according to the physical properties and logical principles of the world. Not possible. We did not evolve that way, and you are arrogant for thinking so. Instead, we are just this imitation of reason, this thing that prefers things like us, things that are pretty, things that are shiny, etc. And then what we can do by knowing that is not just stop it from happening, is that we can start to install new rules. Luckily, we did evolve with a system to self-correct. If you think that this fruit is very good and you've had it a few times in this new area that your group has discovered, and then on the 5th time you get sick, your brain is probably going to correct and say, and attribute the sickness to that fruit and say, okay, no more of that fruit. A new voice will be installed, and the voice that says, oh, that fruit is nice, we like that, go to it, that will diminish. So luckily, we do have that ability to rewire if we make the correct adjustment to our value system. Unfortunately, today, opinions are venerated. Standing your ground is venerated. Changing your mind is seen as bad. We're entitled to our beliefs and all of that. And so what happens is you have these automatic judgments of something, and then you automatically justify them. Okay, because as if you watch the part that you couldn't possibly have watched yet, if you're watching live, then you know that. Shit, what did you say? Do you remember? these rules. I just completely lost my train of thought. Um, Jeez, what was the last thing I was thinking about? All right, this was a little bit too Irish. We had bad voices in the. All right, so then if you know that, and if you know that you have all these bad voices, these things that can be wrong, and if you feel the importance of trying to evolve beyond your sort of starter kit of thinking, the sort of mechanisms and rules of interpretation that you evolved with, if you are want to correct them, you can practice, make a habit of um, new ways of thinking, and more importantly, maybe even scratch what I just said. What you can do is by knowing some of your voices that are not good, that for instance you have a preference for the in group, or it's what I said earlier, you can put measures into place to try to compensate for that. Um, if you have a conclusion, you never know automatically why you think a certain thing. Okay, so try to imagine in order to compensate for that, or you can just say, you know what? Unless I can clearly say a specific thing that he said, and even on um, on further scrutiny, that thing holds, and I'm not in an auto justification mood. Texas, it's okay that you're such a piece of shit. But you just have to admit that, and question that, and then be humble, and then basically the solution is, if you refute, you can mute the voice. Called Hebbian learning, right? If you use neural networks, they reinforce. It's not like your choice, okay, using this neural network. But if a neural network produces a behavior and that behavior is rewarded, and it does that more and more, then it's going to be reinforced. So there's two things that I think you need to do in order to change a voice. One is that you need to refute it. You need to you need to look at the information that the counter example, the counter argument, the counter evidence. You need to look at it, stick it in your brain by really confronting it, reading it, believing it, reminding yourself of it. And then what that does is it strengthens that counter evidence voice that you're now introducing. It strengthens it, which then mutes the voice that wanted you to go for this thing. So, for instance, there is a guy that you don't. So let's say I'm talking. Well, actually, it doesn't matter. I don't want to be heteronormative. So you're talking to there's a guy that you are with that you know is bad for you. If you really tell yourself, if you really review those reasons that he's bad for you, that will have a muting effect on your inclination toward him. And then also, no heed, no need. So if you don't call him, if you are able to somehow resist by calling a friend or whatever, and you don't heed that impulse, that neural network, that voice that's saying go see him, then the neural network will understand, okay, I am not needed. I am not heeded, I am not needed. Again, basic Hebbian learning. And then also, of course, you can speculate, like, oh yeah, in the environment my ancestors evolved in, they probably would have had this instinct, which is not very good for me. So they probably would have wanted, I don't know, this tall guy, or I don't know. And I sound like an incel. Reasoning is probably impossible. I mean, it just doesn't even make any sense, biologically speaking, how that could ever exist, a system that is reasonable. The only thing you can do is imitate reason. So then you have error detection, compensation. So we mustn't s'en vouloir for initial coding. We don't have to be mad at ourselves. We're not stupid, we're not evil, and that's about integration and all that, but whatever. So we have to learn these mistakes that we make, and then just be happily on the lookout for them. And I am, I know that I miss a lot of my mistakes, but also it feels good to me because of my value system when I catch myself making a mistake. Now, of course, not all the time, right? I'm working on it. I know that I'm not going to even notice that I'm making mistakes when I'm talking about certain things, you know? Anyway, the judge may have talked about it. Okay, so now I just really have to pee. Um, oh yeah, no, I was talking to Neo. Okay, I have to pee. I have to pee. How do I? Oh, ay, ay, ay. Gotta pee. Okay. It's honestly not a big deal. Everything that. Oh, go piss, girl. Oh, hey, Cairo. My sister's watching. That's pretty cool. My mama. And two people. That's good enough for me. So, oh, fuck! No! Okay. All right. Computer did not fall. Find a good spot that was away from the rocks to have good enough service, but it's all slanted here. Oh, I'm not gonna. Yeah. Anyway, so let's. That's good. Then that's fun because there's a funny thing that happened in the last video. So I'm glad we were able to still have fun together there. And okay, nope. See, the table's gonna collapse. All right, so basically we're just gonna define some terms, how you can think about yourself, and then okay. Okay, great. Incoming call. Oh no, did I lose connection? Oh, am I no longer live? Is that what the incoming call is? Can someone send a message if I'm live? Oh, she said computer is good, so I don't know why. Did I lose my connection? I don't know whether I'm live. It's red. Okay, now it's yellow. Oh, I'm here. Great. Okay. Thanks, Cairo. Okay. Sorry, I've got so many leggings. My my member got a little bit. Okay. All right. All set. Don't know why I'm getting a call, but I'm going to. Oh, you guys can't see me because I'm getting this call. Oh, call's gone. Okay. Hey, guys. So. Okay, oops. I'm so mad that you guys missed the other stuff. But again, this is probably most people are watching this are probably watching this in like the year 2060. So now here's the vocabulary. A voice. It is a mental operation. You can think of this as an if-then processing rule. If I see this, I do this. If these other neurons say this, then I say this. And that's how the brain works. You have all these networks communicating. And so you could sort of label each one of these. And each of these cognitive biases we can call a voice. And we can call it a maladaptive voice in the context. There are some voices that we have that are maladaptive in this environment in the 21st century. And then there are some that are just maladaptive in the specific context that you're talking about. So, for instance, So, for instance, if someone comes running towards you, if they're a jogger and you are on alert, well, you don't need to be on alert. That's not an adaptive reaction. Um, and also, sometimes it's maladaptive because a voice will have influence that it shouldn't. And what I mean by that is that typically it is good, for instance, to be wary of someone with a criminal record, say. So that voice can be maybe adaptive generally. Um, but then let's say that you know what happened for this person, and it actually, therefore, because of what you know about it, because of what happened with the person, because of what happened with the person, you know that it actually shouldn't affect your judgment. But just the fact that he is a criminal and has a criminal record will activate a voice, which we will consider maladaptive in that context, because it should be diminished by another voice who says, "Oh, no, 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 we know what he did, and actually, like, he's not a bad person." Um, so then, okay, so then next. Okay, so then things that slap. Things that slap are just things that trigger a voice, and then the delivery is the behavior, attitude, or emotion, or feeling, or whatever that the voice produces. And so you can say, oh, you can tell with this person that a certain voice delivered because he was clearly the better candidate. Like the only reason she could have gone against him, let's say you judge in the situation, is that the guy's black, for instance. And so that in-group, out-group really delivered there. That in-group, out-group delivered, and the voice, because that person also probably knows that racism is bad and doesn't want to be racist, right? Most of us don't like racism or anti-racism that delivers or that has the most important influence. It is instead our more primitive sort of instinct of other and us. Which, by the way, I won't say that we evolved to be racist, because actually in our a whole lot of people of other races, but to have a distinction between us and them, that we did have plenty of opportunities. They are from another community, they may try to steal my stuff, or are they a member of my community and cooperative? Um, and then this vocabulary is really important for talking about when you agree with something, stuff like that. Rather than assuming that if something seems right to you, that's because it is right, because I'm a reasonable interpreter and all that, what I like to say is that sings. Ah, my instincts, my lines of code are going, okay, cool. I have no idea whether you just said is true or valuable, really, but I know that I evolved with detectors that are giving me a thumbs up for what you just said. Again, I have very little faith in my detectors, so I want to keep thinking about it, expose my detectors to more of what you're saying and get more of my detectors involved so I can really react to the nuances of what you're saying. But I know that sings. And so you can like marketing, it's all about creating ads that sing, that get the brain going, okay, cool, 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 right? And the things that most quickly and most easily get the brain singing are very easy to trigger. You can do it with colors and lights and celebrity status and so on. And then Shope is just the opposite. And so sometimes when in fact it's just that it set off some alarms, and actually you shouldn't have had faith in that in the first place. So when something sings or when something Shopes, I don't say, oh, I agree or I disagree, I think this or I think that. French, so valet, and which is Spanish, means like got it. When something is valet, it's like the brain is like, okay, like we're okay, like going along with this. And again, if we don't trust our brain, then just because something seems right doesn't mean that it is right, and we understand that we're not going to talk about. Chimiza, this is something that we do all the time. I was about to say that like many people do, but no, that all of us do all the time, is that we have a conclusion, judgment, behavior, whatever, and then we attribute that to a voice, but it's not actually the voice that led to that behavior or that belief. So I talked about in the other video part that you didn't see about this experiment about competitors' faces, and then you have to. There were political opponents, and subjects had to say which face looked more competent. And then there was a significantly important amount of time that the face that was identified as looking more, as appearing more competent was the face of the person who won the election. Um, if you so that shows that we are influenced by how we rate within a second the features of the face to judge competence. That influences our voting decision, but of course nobody will actually ever say or ever realize, oh, I think it was because, for me it was definitely this guy's face, right? And so instead we will we will say our behavior, our decision, whatever, to a different voice or a piece of information, etc. And then the real voice that caused us to, or that played the biggest role in whatever we do, is called the VAT. Okay, you can also maj, and we do that all the time. And it's basically rationalization or justification. Um, you believe something to be true, so you have this belief delivered, this action delivered, this statement delivered, and then you go with it. You presume that it is true and that it is worthwhile, and then you justify it. And we can get very, very carried away when we should have in the first place gone, holy shit, this thing seems really true to me, but why? But instead, then we just start piling on stuff that is bad, or sometimes we're so convinced by the actual voice that produced that delivery that we just reproduce that voice to others. You know, oh, you can't trust him, he's a dirty Mexican. There's somebody that can so on and dig your heels in, and typically by distracting from the actual thing that led you to your what you believe or what you think, whatever, give some irrelevant or even untrue or whatever premises. You do not do any of this intentionally. This is all just in your programming. um, Wikipedia's definition of cognitive belief, that we could have evolved to be reasonable. It just doesn't make any sense. Um, I mean, I talked a lot in the previous video about energy efficiency, and I don't even think it's like possible. I can't even imagine. Just because I can't imagine something doesn't mean it's not possible. But I cannot imagine a thing whose lines of code are basically just like finding truth. You would have to program into the interpreter things that we haven't even figured out about the world or about logic yet. It makes no sense. It's so dumb. Yeah, cool. So I guess we're gonna leave it there. Okay, no, we'll leave it at the judge myth. So the judge myth I already talked about in the previous thing, but I wasn't live. So I spent a long time talking about how many selves there are. And it's a really important component of this whole discussion. In history, mythology, folklore, popular, whatever, the number of selves tends to range between maybe 1 and like 4 maximum. So maybe there's the one, there's just the soul, the me, the I, you know. So Lewis Carroll talks about you are a soul, you have a body, right? So this body is my periphery. I am one thing. I am this soul. Sometimes there's the self, and then there's like a conscience, which is this other voice. So then we're two things. Sometimes there's two things, like two wolves. Sometimes there's two things, like my emotional side and my rational side. By the way, basically everything I'm saying is bullshit. But this is sort of courtroom. Then you might imagine the main self, the ego, the conscious self, the person on whose shoulders are the other selves. That's like the judge, right? The different cognitive biases exist. We're going to continue to pretend like they influence us just to evolve the metaphor until it's correct. So now you can imagine in-group, out-group, halo bias, halo effect, hindsight bias, availability heuristic, endowment effect. I mean, there are hundreds of these things. More valuable, and whatever. And they're shouting at each other, sometimes about the same thing, usually lots of different conversations being had. And so then you imagine that you are yourself the judge, and you have to listen to these biases and not be too influenced by them, and be reasonable and so on. That is a myth. There is no judge, actually. That's an illusion, as much of an illusion as free will. Actually, your mind, city person, or a rich voice that a lot of people want to listen to, that has a great deal of process in what gets delivered. But that voice was listened to because it was generally advantageous for our ancestors, and our environment is very different right now, and also each situation has different nuances. So there is no judge, and I spent 45 minutes like having this realization with you that I am rushing through now. Just there is no judge, there is no you do not exist. And so then through refuting and muting, through not needing, not heeding, and through just some humility, we can realize that we are just this noisy gymnasium of idiots that like kind of got it right most of the time about like fighting and fucking, but when it comes to things that are considered important nowadays, when it comes to I need to get that townsperson out of there and blah blah, and just trusting ourselves less, trusting the image, uh, video, yeah. So we need to become a little bit more evidence-based because now we can. I'm sitting here. I'm not worried about predators, prey, starving, or anything like that. I can now pay attention to the nuance and look at the evidence rather than just relying on hunches. Just remind you, your hunches don't feel like hunches. But if you think that you have an answer to a question in a few seconds, or even in a few minutes, or even with however little information you have, you're arrogant, and we all are. We're all very arrogant. We overestimate our reasoning, or we overestimate ourselves. We think that we're anyway. So great. Okay. Thank you, everybody, and integration. Okay, I'm gonna pee, and then we are going to talk about integration because it is a major. It's major. It was pretty much in line with the way that we already saw ourselves, with this ego and this, just trying to avoid being influenced by bad voices and listen to the good ones and stuff. But actually, we realize there is no judge, so it's basically just whichever townsperson grabs the pen. And obviously, it's amazing. There's not enough connectivity for every voice to talk to every other voice. How you are able to know something and then not do the thing that would be appropriate, or how you're able to want something and not do the thing that would be appropriate. So an example of that would be, as I talked about, and I volunteered with a group that was helping refugees, and they definitely had voices in their head that were like, racism is bad, all people are equal, or whatever. And yet, there we encountered a situation where two people, and separated by just a few months, were accused of bad things. One was a member who never stepped foot there again 10 minutes after he showed his face after the accusation had been received, even though the accuser, who was not the victim, told the organization not to do anything because it had been resolved. Whereas the in-group who had been accused of something which I'd consider worse, and I think anybody who I gave the details would as well, stayed on champion these modern ideals and stuff. But they're not integrated. Just because they have those voices doesn't mean those voices that influence everything else going around in their mind and what gets delivered. In fact, those voices may have very little to do with their behavior. Those voices may talk about their behavior or their ideas. But in their actual perception, judgment, reaction to things, those cultural ideals may play much less of a role than we think. Which, if you know anything about psychology or evolution, makes a lot of sense. And no offense, sorry if you don't. Um, and then, of course, if you do, and I'm wrong about this, oops, please let me know. So the human brain not being integrated is enormous, because what that means is that you cannot judge someone's set of voices based on their behavior. Here's an example. Comedian, saw her on Instagram, Australian Indian woman. She says that I'm a woman of color, and what that basically means is that weird shit happens to you when you're not white, or that doesn't happen if you're white. For instance, my first day on 3 different jobs as a refugee lawyer, they thought I was the refugee and not the lawyer. And I was like, and then the audience like, oh, yikes. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, I find it problematic that everybody's groaning about being confused with a refugee. And people said, no, that's not the problem. The problem is that those people thought that because she was colored, she couldn't be a lawyer. They thought that lawyers had to be white. No, they didn't. Those people don't exist. Nobody who... Oh, am I off? Let me see. Getting an incoming call, but I wouldn't be getting an incoming call if I was still going, right? Let's just reject the call. Hello?
Hello?
Hi. Oh, wait, tu sais, je suis en live là.
Encore?
Bah oui. Ok. Je t'aime. Salut. Okay. So, can you guys, like, see me now? No, not yet. Okay, so now you can see me. Am I still connected? Kyle, can you confirm again, please? Now it says 0 kilobytes per second. Everybody said, you're not the lawyer. And she's like, yeah, no, I am. No, lawyers have to be white. No. Or even without saying that, they were just like, no. It was probably just this immediate miscategorization. The brain is not integrated. It's not because we treat someone like they have to be a refugee because they're colored, that actually in the brain that we think they have to be a refugee just because the brain is constantly making assumptions, quick judgments, and acting and reacting as quickly as it can. So this is a very... I think I keep freezing and unfreezing, but we're almost done. So this is really huge, and actually, it's so funny because this is huge for it's huge for everybody. And with my girlfriend, for instance, we're able to talk about it, and maybe one of us will do something or say something, and we'll be like, "Wait a minute, that doesn't at all match what your other values are, whatever." But then sometimes a person, because I believe this. And so if we realize that we're not integrated, we realize, oh shit, it is possible. It is possible for me to be racist even though I'm against racism. It is absolutely possible for me to be sexist even though I want to value intellectually I value the sexes equally. And so once you accept that integration is a myth, you realize, oh, I don't exist. I'm just a bunch of these voices. And I should expect for bad voices to deliver because I've done zero work on this. I just evolved and came about this world and started believing in all my instincts and trusting my intuition. So yeah, so I mean, a world that looks like